Hello, everyone, and welcome to our, I think, 35th webinar on PA DSS and PA SSF. Actually, on PCI SSF, this has again been an outcome of, if I might say, that popular demand. We have been doing a lot of webinars on PCI DSS, HIPAA, SOC 2, GDPR, many other areas, and one of the areas that were ignored, even though we do it, was PA-DSS, Payment Application Data Security Standards, and now the upcoming SSF, Software Security Framework, which is now coming up. So we thought, let us do something on that. There are so many questions, so we consolidated all of it into this webinar, and I really hope you enjoy. And before we start, I hope you can hear me, and if there is any query, feel free to just drop a one line in the chat box, and my colleague is also there with me, who's manning the behind the scenes role, and he will jump into it immediately. So with that tone, let us just initiate. So these are the webinar objectives as has been circulated to you. I don't think I need to read it again, but what it's all about, what are the requirements, eligibility criterion, and how does it interplay with PCI, pen testing, coding requirements, and many of the FAQs which are there associated with PA-DSS and what you can expect in the new standard. So it is a jam-packed session, and I hope to make the most of it. And I'll be going through it a bit on the faster pace. And in case you do have any queries, do drop me a line, and I will slow down, or do ask your questions, and I'll take it up immediately. All right. So all of our past webinars and a lot of more content you can find on whether PCI or HIPAA, GDPR. That's our YouTube channel. You can search on YouTube, and it must have got that with the invite also. And it's there. Do subscribe, and you'll see a lot of content is there, and you can just watch it for free. Now, whether it's been for the past more than 3 years now, we've been doing the webinars, and it is there live. So. And this is the bottom line principle of our webinars. That is, it's always the question that enlightens, and not really the answer. So with what I mean by that is, it's always very, very important to keep asking questions. So whatever your question is, do drop me a line. Typically speaking, there's an avalanche of questions in all my webinars, and I take it up on the fly as much as possible. But let me assure you and promise you that in case there are just too many and I'm not able to take it up immediately, because it just extends the time too much, and many of the people even attending today are many of our clients. Many of them are very senior people, and they would be having very tight timelines. So I try and stick to the timelines as much as possible. But I do get back to you. I will write back to you with my contact details, and you can always give me a call or write to me. And this is a brief about me, a face to the name, and many of you have already met me also. So again, I'm the director for VISTA InfoSec. I'm myself a PCI QPA, QSA, CSSP, CISA, CRISC, many other things. I've been in this area for more than like 25 years now. I have my own company, VISTA InfoSec, and we are primarily into consulting, data security and information security. And this is a brief about my company. We are based in Mumbai, India, but we have an office in US. We have an office in Singapore. We work across New York and other states also, and we are also 27,000 certified. We are 100% vendor neutral. That's one of the key reasons many of the companies work with us. We don't sell any products, but we give you advice right up to the product level. But we don't have any kickbacks or any understanding with any vendor. We have been ranked by Deloitte as one of the fastest growing companies, and we're also certain empaneled and many other things. So let me jump directly into my service line. This is our service line. We are very strong on compliance and governance. That's a separate team for all these various standards like PCI DSS, PCI PIN, PA DSS. We are ourselves also a PCI DSS, PCI QPA, and a PCI DS QSA rather company. We are also in PA DSS, so we do all the certification, consulting, everything, and very strong on the international regulatory compliance also, whether it is PCI, GDPR, HIPAA, SOC 1, SOC 2. Okay, going ahead, this is a few of our clients, partial client listing that we have, so we know where I'm coming from and where our experience stems from. Okay, and in the end, there is a survey after this webinar. Please do, we've taken a lot of time and we also spend a lot of money in doing this webinar. Please do fill up the survey, fill whatever has been your experience, whether it is a positive, negative, give your feedback, your questions, even your requests for future webinars, and we will do address it. Thank you so much. So with that, we jump right into it. A brief on the history of PCI DSS. I won't get much into it, just one slide. So there is a context to this webinar. This is how it was. It was PCI Security Council was formed in 2004. Otherwise, before that, each of those brands, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, JCB, they had their own data security requirements, and the merchants were going crazy. Merchants and banks were going crazy, satisfying different masters. So in 2004, the PCI Security Council, Security Standards Council, was formed by these brands. It's not like a government body or something, as many people feel. It is a private body or an institution, if I might say that, driven by these various brands. 1.0 was released in 2005. 1.1 in 2006, and in 2008 1.2 was released. And why I've written up till 2008 is because it started working on PCI DSS from 2008. It's been 12 years now. Our first client at that time was BillDesk. It is India's #1 payment processing company, payment gateway company. A very good company rather, and it's been a pleasure to be associated with them. And from 1.2, and now the latest version is 3.1, 3.2.1, sorry. And this is the various the council members, the brands associated with the PCI Council, as we saw: Visa, MasterCard, JCB, Discover, and Amex. And just to give a brief, because I have to show you how the various standards interplay. There is PCI DSS. We can start from the right over here. There is PCI DSS applies to any company, as you must have seen. There is a whole series of webinars on my on our YouTube channel of VISTA InfoSec, and you can get into more details on PCI DSS. Applies to any entity which is storing, processing, or transmitting card information. By card, it would mean debit or credit card, even prepaid cards. And the next would be the PA-DSS, Payment Application Data Security Standards, and that's what we are going to focus on today, basically concerned with payment applications, and there is the eligibility criterion also. And DCI, PCI, PED, payment pin entry devices. Again, this is for the characteristics of the design of the pin entry device as such for during entry of the pin on your ATM or the POS devices. And this is how it is. PCI DSS covers all the security of environment. It is basically environment specific. PA-DSS is application specific. And then again, within this, there is PCI, PTS, PCI P2E, P2PE, which contains and which is concerned with an entire solution end to end. With regards to encryption, key management, everything. So an entire solution with regards to a product that might buy, including services, gets covered in P2PE. And then again, the PCI PTS. Now over here, there are different standards. There is PCI PTS POI, which is the point of interaction, which is all the devices associated with card entry and card usage. It could be your tap devices, NFC devices, swipe devices. Everything is concerned with the hardware part. And PCI PTS pin, again, this is where we are a certifying company also as VISTA InfoSec. PCI pin is basically for the secure management, processing, and transmission on the pin. Once you swipe your card or you enter your card number, or you swipe your card at an ATM or a POS device, you are supposed to be entering a pin. And now this PCI PTS pin is concerned with the secure storage, transmission of and the processing of those pin details that you enter when you are when you put the card for authorization. And PCI PTS HSM is with regards to the hardware security module, the crypto devices meant for managing and generating crypto keys. And last but not the least is of course a PCI CP card production, concerned with the printing and development of cards, of the hardware, the hard cards. that you carry in your pockets. And again, as a company, we have done PCI card protection assessment for many companies in India and overseas. Now this is where the PCI DSS applicability comes into place, and what is allowed and what is not. Now retain this slide in your mind. If possible, I'll go back to the slide also. So what is allowed and what is not? So there is cardholder data, CHD as it is called as an acronym, whereas the PAN number or the card number. So the storage is permitted, protection is required, that is encryption is required, and there is a cardholder name. Name is there. Now PCI DSS requirement 3.4 is basically concerned with the encryption of the card details. There is cardholder name, service code is there, expiration date. So these are the four details for which storage is permitted and protection is required. Encryption is mandated only for the card number. It's not necessary to encrypt the rest, but if you do, it is not really a problem as far as PCI DSS is concerned. And there is something called as sensitive authentication data. This is an absolute no unless you are an issuer. Remember that it is an absolute no. There is no compensating controls or anything that you can show. It's an absolute no. That is the entire stripe data or the pin block which is there on your the EVM the EMV cards which is there. That you have, there's the chip cards which is there. So the storage of those chip contents or the pin blocks or the CVV, all this forms under something called as a SAD or sensitive authentication data. So that is an absolute no at all under any circumstance, unless you are an issuer, that is. And this again is one of the key requirements, reasons why PA-DSS is there. As you must have seen, one of the of course, if it is an unstructured data, means like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, then it is really you have to maintain as to, in case you're maintaining your card details in flat files or Excel or Word, then you have to manage it on your own. But what happens if there's an application? Now, if there is a Word, Excel, or a flat file, you can always do a search, or you can always open the files yourself and check. But what about applications? Like there is a very well-known core banking system in India, and believe it or not, it doesn't encrypt the card details. Now when such an organization goes in for PCI DSS certification, it becomes a very big mess. So how do you ensure that the applications that you're implementing in your organization is satisfying at least the core basic requirements of PCI DSS? Now these are a few of the requirements. That is, card number has to be encrypted. SAT data is absolutely no storage permitted at all. So protection or encryption becomes a moot point. So what about with regards to the protection required of your card details? If you are purchasing an application, how do you know for sure that those people who are giving you that application are following all these requirements for protection of the application? And that is where again PA-DSS comes into place, so that the applications that you are purchasing are following these requirements of PCI DSS. There are many other requirements also. I'll come to that, but this was just like a starting point for that. Okay, so this is the background for PA-DSS. Currently, the version is 3.2, and what we can see is that this applies to any third-party applications. There is a big eligibility criterion also, and I'll open that also for you. But these are a few things that it is required to be done by your organizations. So if the application performs what to say, whether it is doing authorization and or settlement, then it is mandatory for the application to be PA-DSS certified. PA-DSS further ensures that the application can function in a PCI DSS compliant manner. What do I mean by that? See, basically speaking, I might like there could be a company X that has made an application. Now, remember this point I'm saying because this will come up again. As an organization, we might have we might be selling a software which is you to be used in card environment, and it is PCI PA DSS certified and all those things. But what if you buy that application and you implement it in a haphazard manner? Maybe you have not done the hardening of the web application properly, or the web platform, or the operating system, or the database, or maybe you've not changed something very basic as the default accounts and stuff like that. Then what happens? Then in that case, even though that application, or maybe enabled the audit trails, or maybe submitted the right folders for monitoring under file integrity monitoring requirement of PCI DSS. So how do I know that you've done those things properly or not? Meaning you can still mess it up because you've not implemented it properly. So then what happens? So that is where, as a PA-DSS application, it doesn't mean that your environment is fully certified and secure, because you might have still implemented it in a haphazard manner. And that those are the areas that the auditor will still need to check. So just having, okay, I've got a process having 5 applications, and all the 5 applications are PA-DSS certified. So does it mean that if I go as in PCI QSA to do your PCI DSS audit, I don't need to validate that application? I need not get into the working of that application per se, but how that application has been implemented, tested, all those things as something that I still need to check. It simply means a PA-DSS simply certified application can only mean that it is good enough to function in a PC-DSS compliant environment. Running a PA-DSS application doesn't make your environment PCI DSS compliant. Rather, a PA DSS application is supposed to be implemented in a PCI DSS compliant environment in a PCI DSS compliant manner. And it has to be implemented as per the PA DSS guide provided by the PA payment application vendor. So that is all that it means. So it's a comprehensive set of requirements. For third-party applications only. It is distinct from PCI DSS, but it is still very well aligned with PCI DSS, and we'll get into that also more in detail. Now, applicability is concerned for PA DSS. It applies only to third-party application only and only if it performs one of the key requirements. Other not only one of the key requirements is that it has to be involved in either authorization and or settlement. If your application, now this is now in my invite to you on the webinar, I had mentioned that there is something of a scam going on. Well, this is where it is. Well, many of the so-called certifying bodies, PA DSS certifying vendors, companies, they say, okay, all the applications in the environment have to be PA-DSS compliant. And it's not the case. I could be having an application that is simply drawing up an MIS from the card details, or it could be looking into fraud risk management of the card, or it could be in the anti-money laundering, again touching on the card details. So that mindset is silly when it says that if an application is touching card data, it has to be PA-DSS certified. That is absolutely not the case. And in a short while, I'll open up PCI DSS PCI Council provided eligibility criterion, the actual document. So you know that these requirements are not something that I'm cooking up from the top of my head or as per my experience, because the bottom line is what the council says, not what Narendra Sahoo says or VISTA InfoSec or any other company says. The buck stops with what the council has to say, not anybody else. So PA-DSS ensures that an application in a compliant manner. Okay, I'll pull up the chart now. This is the assessment environment for the PA-DSS applications also. Now, PA-DSS applications, the second point, please, is something that you really need to think about or get in line on. This is the area where, typically speaking, okay, my way of drawing a line is very bad. Okay, so I'm drawing this with my mouse and my keypad, so please bear with me. Okay, so it's in the scope. PA-DSS validated payment applications are still in the scope of PCI DSS. This is mandatory. It is not that, okay, I have 3 applications and it is PA-DSS certified. We get into arguments on this with many customers, not arguments, like discussion, heated discussions, because they're saying we have PA-DSS certified applications. Why do we need to be in the scope? That is how it is, because you might have implemented it in a haphazard manner. Just the architecture, the PA-DSS as a certification validates the architecture of the application. It doesn't validate, or it cannot really validate how you implemented it. Now, if so as an assessor, I cannot challenge whether that application is PA-DSS certified or not. If it has a certification, it has a certification. That's about it. I cannot then challenge that this what to say, this architecture of the application might still be risky. No, if it is certified, it's certified. But where it is implemented, that scope, that environment is still in scope of my assessment as a QSA. So as an assessor, I have to look into those things. Again, I have shared this earlier also. The payment application is implemented into a PCI DSS compliant environment. So remember this: getting a PA DSS application doesn't make you PCI DSS compliant. Rather, the PA DSS application has to be implemented in a PCI DSS compliant environment, and the application is implemented as per the PA DSS implementation guide, released by whom? Not by the council, released by the vendor. All the other systems components, whether it is server, database, web servers, application servers, firewalls, network devices of that concerned with that PA-DSS applications, are still in scope. So as an assessor, my focus will be on the application's implementation in accordance with the implementation guide and nothing else. All right, so that said, let us move on. Okay. Now, payment and compliance programs are there for PA-DSS. Again, many a time it is, there is, okay, the other side of it. The other side of it is that, many a time have seen regulators. It could be the RBI, it could be a body like NPCI, where I'm not pointing at either of them. These are highly professional, and these organizations know what they're talking about. And they might say to a particular gateway provider, or to a independent service organization or service provider in the ecosystem of payments, and tell them that this application that you're using needs to get PA-DSS certified or attested or assessed. Now, these applications might not be in the eligibility criterion of PCI Council, but you still need to get it done. Now, how does that impact is something I'll come to. Okay, now give me a minute. I'll just pull up that eligibility sheet that I mentioned so many times. Okay, I hope you can see this sheet, um, which has been circulated by the PCI Council. It is not, as I said, my own thing. Now, understand a few things. first of all, be very clear on the criterion. For the purposes of PA-DSS, a payment eligible for review is defined as an application that stores, processes, or transmit card data. And now, just to make it clear again, below is what you can see is the eligibility criterion for an application to get validated and certified as a PA-DSS certifiable application. Okay, this is not something that I have cooked up. This is something from the council itself. So the first thing is, for the purposes of PA-DSS, a payment eligible for PA-DSS for review and listing. The bottom line over here is review and listing. I'll explain to you what that means. Is an application that stores, processes, or transmits card data is sold and distributed. Now, the next part is again the following list of questions is designed for further differentiating whether or not an application is eligible for review and listing by the PCI Council as part of the PA-DSS program. Now look at these questions, okay? Now these questions are not an or, it is an, any of these questions. If the answer is a yes, it means that you cannot be reviewed and listed and be known as a PA-DSS certifiable application. Okay, so these are any, if the answer to any of the following questions is yes, the application is not eligible for validation under PA-DSS. First, if it is a beta version. Second, does the application handle card data? But the application itself doesn't do any sort of authorization or settlement. Now, this thing is very critical, my dear friends. See, the reason is there are applications that handle card data, but they are not doing any sort of authorization or settlement. So, but if the application, so if half of that is true, again you are not eligible for PA-DSS certification. Now the next thing, as you can see, does the application require source code, sorry, does the application facilitate authorization or settlement but has no access to the cardholder data or sensitive authentication data? So for example, there are payment applications are there, they are accepting the card data, but then immediately now from the POS device itself, it is getting encrypted and gets directly transmitted to the bank for authorization and settlement or whatever be the case. It doesn't the application in itself is not having any visibility into the card data itself. So in that case, again, it is not falling under PA-DSS. Now the next thing is very, very critical. If you so it is very customized or the application is directly developed by the organization itself, or the organization has hired a company to do application for itself, that application cannot be PA-DSS certified and listed on the PCI Council website. Now, is the application a back office system for reporting, CRM, reward, fraud scoring, anti-money laundering, all those things? Developed in-house, developed and sold to a system customer, single customer, or developed as a part of a library? Look at this. Does the application depend on other software to meet one application, a single module but not submitted as a part of a suite, or an application as a SaaS provider? There are many cloud system providers. This is extremely important again. If an application is a cloud model and not being sold, it cannot get listed as a PA-DSS certified application. We get so many inquiries for this. I need to have my application listed because it's a SaaS product. No, it cannot be done. So what is the way ahead? I'll come to that also. Please quickly just go through this. If you have any queries, you can just drop it in. So any web app, any mobile apps, all those things that is not dedicated solely to payment acceptance, all these things, the council can actually reject. Any of these things is a yes. Your application cannot be listed on the PCI Council website. Okay, be very clear on that. So what I'm doing now is that, okay, a couple of, okay, there's a Sridhar, he has asked for this document as a handout. So you ask, can you receive, my friend? So what I'm doing is that I'm uploading this particular document as a handout for the people of this webinar. Feel free to download it, and again, it's there on the council website for a free download again. But as you are my such lovely people who have attended my webinar, so this thing, you're a handout for you. And in case you're you are watching this thing as a part of a recording on YouTube, do drop me a mail and we'll mail it across to you also. So jumping right back into my presentation. Okay, and that's where the presentation is on the PA-DSS applicability. So these other things also are not required to be what to say applicability for PA-DSS. Any operating system, database systems, backholder system, back office systems, for which are storing the cardholder data for the purpose of anything else than what you have seen earlier. It could be even something like a rudimentary, something like a CRM reporting, fraud risk management, money laundering. All those applications cannot be um, listed under a PA-DSS applicability on the PA-DSS on the PCI Council website. Okay, again, Fuzail, you put in a question. How do you identify which application has to be PA-DSS to be approved to compliance? Well, my friend, I think I just did a few slides for that. The eligibility criterion, and I'm uploading that as a handout now, so you can read it at your own leisure also. One sec. Yeah. So I've uploaded. I'm just started the upload of the document. Which applications eligible for PA-DSS? This is the same document that I showed you like a couple of minutes back. So Fuzail and others, please feel free to download it. There is the scoping for PA-DSS. How do you scope a PA-DSS? It's not just an application. What do you mean by the application? So coverage of all the payment application functionality, including but not limited to end-to-end payment functions, how it is being done, input and output, error conditions, interface and connection to other files, system components, what data is being sent out, to whom it is being sent out, all those things, the card data flow, the data flow diagram, and you actually might need to, depending on the applications, actually prove it to the auditor. That is, this is how the card flow data flow happens. Encryption mechanisms, key management mechanisms, authentication mechanisms, all those things get verified as a part of um, you know um, PCA of the assessment. Okay, now there is another Kuchal Das asking a question. What is the link for downloading? Two things. First, I've already uploaded this document as a handout. Secondly, just go to PCI go to the document section, select PA-DSS, and there you can see the documents for downloading, including what I've just shown you. But as I said, you don't even need a link. You can just download from what I've given you, or you can just go to PCISecurityStandards.org. I'm typing out the link now. Okay, there is Alan. He's asked another question. Does the payment application in the EDC terminal need to be PA-DSS compliant if it has PCI PTS? No, PCI PTS. If the application already has, then it is not really required to be done. And if it is already there in place, then it is not required to be done. But in all these things, what I would always say, Alan, is that in all these things, always get a confirmation from your payment brand or your acquirer, whomsoever is going to authorize. Or best thing is always the payment brand. If it's an EDC terminal, then it could be associated with one or two brands. So just ask those brands that this is what it is. Do you still want me to get PCPA DSS certified? Technically, no. Practically, they might still ask you to. So we always say, to get go ahead for it. Okay, you're saying, Alan, that is there any reference in the PCI Council website? Well, there are. How I say that? See, as a auditor ourselves, as a PCI QSA and a PA QSA and PCI and all those things, we have a lot of assessor meetings. So many of these questions, the PCI Council is one of the best bodies I've ever seen, and supremely professional. And over there they have a massive, they have a very nice session with all the QSAs, QPAs and whatever, and PAQPAs, all those things, and all these questions are taken up over there. Now I don't think that content is open for the general public, but as I said, the best thing is that you can ask your brand. I'm giving you my opinion as an auditor and a certifying body myself. So but I would always say, get it certified, get it clarified again, not because I'm not sure about it, but more often than not, we have seen the payment brands for their own better known reasons. I'm not saying that they are wrong about it. For their own reasons might still ask you to do that. Like we have seen payment brands asking applications who are not into authorization and settlement, still asking them to get certified. So that's a different story. So that's what I would request you to do that. Thank you again for your questions, Alan. Please do drop in any more if you have. Okay, scoping for PA-DSS. Again, this becomes a very painful topic, but this is something that is extremely important. It's a very tedious process. It's not just, okay, many, many a time, people who come to us for PA-DSS certification, they ask us, they are under the impression that we are only going to do web AppSec and a mobile AppSec and certify applications and it gets listed. Absolutely no. That is one of the areas, one of the points that needs to be checked, but that is absolutely the no. That is not even 10% of the entire effort that goes into a PA-DSS certification. So that's not really just the case. Okay, so what all gets covered in the scoping for PA-DSS compliance? Now again, this content I've taken from the PA-DSS documentation in itself, so this is not my humble opinion. So why I keep repeating that this is not my humble opinion, because humble opinions are subjective by nature, and I then reserve the right to be misunderstood or be wrong or having misunderstood myself. But in that case, this is a document that is directly from the horse's mouth. So that's why I make it very clear. Again, that doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. I've been in this industry for like 25, more than 25, 26 years now, 26 years, 27th year in progress now. So I definitely know what I'm talking about. But that said, this document is not from me. This content, what you're seeing now, is from the council. That there has to be coverage of the guidance that the application vendor is supposed to be provided to ensure that one, the customer knows how to implement the payment application in a PA-DSS compliant manner. The customer is clearly told that certain payment applications may prohibit their PCI DSS compliance. So the implementation guide becomes like the Bible for the application. The do's and don'ts, how you're supposed to be running the application, what you're not supposed to be doing. What changes if you do, it will compromise. And bolte na, like you buy a TV or whatever, or a laptop or something, and there is a sticker over there that warranty void if removed. So what is the warranty void if removed for your application are the things that needs to be clarified very clearly in your implementation document. Now, it also needs to be the guidance also needs to be provided even when there are even when there are specific settings which cannot be controlled by the payment application vendor. Something like patching, something like the hardening of the database. So it is very well possible that you have designed your database of your application, take into consideration some database settings for securing the database per se. Now, at the time of implementation, maybe your organization implemented the proper database hardening techniques, but some administrator violated it. Then what happens? You need to be very clear of the responsibility of the customer and not the payment application vendor. As I said again, the updates and the patches supplied from the underlying infrastructure like Windows, Linux, Oracle types, or the antivirus requirements, or the firewall requirements, or the WAF requirements, web application firewall requirements. Now, coverage of all the selected platforms to be reviewed, including in the versioning and what version is certified. Coverage of all tools for access, you, of the cardholder data. It should be very clear on the reporting tool, logging tools in the application itself. And the scope should also look into. It also covers rather all the tools that is ancillary to it. It's not just a data flow. So when I'm auditing, I'll also be looking at the reporting tools, logging tools. I'll also be looking at the related software components which is included in that software, in the PA-DSS software. Now, coverage of any other payment applications required for the payment for the full implementation. It can also be that you might say that, okay, for my application to work properly, I need to have maybe a Tableau platform implemented, or some sort of a rational row sort of an implementation to be done, or some specific ERP product to be implemented. So all those things needs to be included as a part of your scoping and your audit. And also is your versioning methodology. We have lost count how many times the software developers try to get a bit too smart in the way the versioning is done, so that they are so they are able to sidestep the regular PA-DSS certification requirements. So going ahead, the PA-DSS requirement, finally there are 14 requirements, and this is a free download. The entire download the standard you can download for free from the PCI security standards website. And these are the requirements protecting this is all the requirements pertaining to the application. Remember this, okay? If you have read PCI DSS as a standard, this is PA DSS. All these 14 requirements are required from that application. Provide secure authentication, protect startholder data, do not retain full track data. So this is something that has to be met by you as an application. That is why PCI Council insists on off-the-shelf products to get certified. Now, okay, facilitate secure network implementation. Cardholder data must never be stored on a server connected to the internet. Remote access to the application, payment application, all these things, encrypting sensitive traffic. So by default, if you're having like a hub and spoke feature in your application, the data has to be encrypted by default. You cannot tell the the user of that application to ensure the VPNs in place. Your application in itself must also be in a position to encrypt the data. And the 13 and 14 is the training programs, the implementation guides for your personnel, customers, resellers, and integrators of your application. I don't really have time to get into it in detail, but if you're more interested in knowing about these requirements more in detail, again, I've passed you the link earlier. Do go to PCIsecuritystandards.org, go in the document section, select PA-DSS and download the documentation. And the completion steps, in case you're looking at PA-DSS certification, first thing, the confirmation of the scope. Now, this thing has to be validated by the auditor. It cannot be you saying it and the auditor accepting it. And then as an auditor, perform the PA-DSS application. There is, like how in PCI DSS there is an ROC, in PA-DSS there is an ROV, report on validation. And then there is finally an attestation of validation, both by the QSA and the software vendor. And after the completion is there, assuming your application is you know, eligible for listing on a PA-DSS on the PCI Council website, all these documents have to be given to the council. They will raise an invoice for you running into a few $1,000s that has to be paid by the software vendor, and then the council will go through all the documentation, validate the eligibility criterion, and if you satisfy all that and the payments are due, then it gets listed. Now, this last part that I said is very, very important, because many a time there are applications that get audited against PA-DSS and they are not eligible for PA-DSS listing on the council website. In that case, what happens is that as an organization, I can issue a certificate to you that this, as an auditor, I have checked and confirmed that this application is PA-DSS compliant, but that application cannot get listed on the council website. So if the eligibility criterion that we discussed earlier is not to be done, is not eligible in any manner, in any small area also, if you're not eligible for it, the council will reject your application. In that case, you can collect a certificate from your auditor. So if you appoint us, we can give you a certificate that as per our attestation, this XYZ company of yours, this application of yours, and this version is PA-DSS attested or compliant, but not certified, because again for that you have to go to the council. So a few of the examples of documentation that you need to provide at the time of attestation or audit, look at this: software installation guide, training material, operator manual, implementation guide, internal documents, data flow diagrams, flow chart. You also need to provide, this application is not just on a documentation basis. The auditor will need to install this application in his own laboratory or in the vendor's laboratory, that is in the vendor's environment. But it's not something that is just done using documentation and screenshots. It is implemented in the auditor's environment or in the developer's environment and validated. Change control mechanisms, everything has to be checked. So this is the validation process. It is valid for 3 years with an annual review that has to be done. Select the PA QSA. I hope you select us. Uh, we'll review your payment application. If it is payment application is compliant after audit, we submit it for we submit to you the report on validation, the docs to the PCI Council. The PCI Council issues an acceptance letter to the vendor, that is you, and then finally the payment application gets listed on the website. If there is payment application is not compliant, we submit the findings to the vendor. The vendor remediates the application, and then the circle goes on and on. And these are the revalidation requirements in case you are wondering rather. So on the renewal date, the vendor must prepare an annual attestation letter saying that, okay, no changes has been made. So minor changes has been made that does not impact PA-DSS environment. So then again, um, you know, the definition, what is meant by, minor and major is listed. That is any change made that can make any changes to the any of the 14 requirements of PA-DSS cannot be counted as a minor change. It could be what data is stored, how it is stored, how the encryption is managed, how the keys are managed, all those. So if you're like adding a company name or a company logo at the top of the application, it is fine. Those are minor changes. But you introduce a new module in the application flow, so the application flow chart has changed, those are major changes. And then that requires a recertification by the PAQSA. So next, coming to the upcoming, that is PCI software security framework. Not many slides. I know I'm out of time, but I'll just take like 5-7 minutes more and take you through this. Again, if you have any queries, you can always drop me a line. It was published originally in Jan 2019. There is the documents are published. Documents were published in June 2019. It came up for RFC requests for comments in Jan 2019. June 2019, the standard came out. And application for becoming a SSF, SSR company. See, now we are a PAQS, say in the going ahead, it will become an SSF, SSR company came up in 2019, October. Then the SSR program opened up in the Q1 of 2020. And the first SSR programs listing is expected in the Q3 of 2020. And then by 2021, June 2021, so as of now, PA-DSS applications for new applications are accepted. Okay, then again by 2022 and by 2023, 2022, that is the by Q3, the PA-DSS program closes. Until then, you are what to say, eligible for even applying for PA-DSS certification. But if you are coming up with a new application, I would really suggest you that you can go ahead with the SSF program and get your applications listed over there. That will be the best approach, so your application becomes like future proof. That said, okay, there are many questions now. Okay, that is Ronak has asked a nice question. If I use payment processor, let's say PayPal standard, do I need to pass PA-DSS? So if your application is not accepting card data at all, not involved in authorization or settlement, or so this is a nice question, by the way. So, and if your application is passing on the details using an iframe or something to a payment gateway for debiting, for accepting the card details, debiting, and then just settling out the money with you at the end of day or end of week or whatever, then you need not get PCI PA-DSS compliant for your application. Okay, because your application, as you saw earlier, is not is not getting into any sort of accepting of card data or authorization or settlement or per se, so it's not required to get PA-DSS certified. Okay, there are many more questions, and as I promise you, I'll get back to you on this, but I really need to finish this session now. So what are the stakeholders need to know? Will remain listed until the end of October. Existing PA-DSS will remain on the list of validated PA-DSS until their expiry dates, or until the end of October 2022. At that time, they'll be moved to the existing. This is what happens. So if you ask that you get you're getting certified now, or you're due to get certified, and what happens after 2022, they'll be moved to another list called as acceptable only for pre-existing deployments. That is, after October 2022, you cannot be rolling out your PA-DSS certified applications anymore. But if it's a working application anywhere before 2022 October, then it is valid. After October 2022, you cannot roll out new deployments of your PA-DSS application, and your new submission for PA-DSS validation will be accepted only until 2021, and the validation will then expire after that application, that validation, assuming that you get certified on by 2021, it will expire by October 2022. And once the SSFs are qualified and listed, the vendors can begin the validation process. And PCI Council at that time will list both the secure SLC qualified vendors or the SSF qualified vendors, and the validated payment applications on their website. And if you're an existing member of the PCI Council, like a QSA or a PA QSA, you can become an SSF. That is security framework, software security framework assessor. Then you are qualified to do both the secure SLC assessments or the secure software assessments, or both. And for both secure and secure programs, you have to meet the qualifications requirements. Again, you are there on the listing is there on the PCI security standards website. Until then, QSA is eligible for only doing a secure SLC. And for accepting the applications, the PCI Council has already started, and the training has already started by early 2020. It has already started, rather, and the rest is for everyone, as you've already seen. They will continue. The PA-DSS program will continue to be supported by until the end of 2022, as you have seen. and after that it will be moved into a separate listing. So moving ahead, um, I'll just quickly jump into secure coding requirements. Okay, Alan, this is again, thank you for your question, Alan. Good question over here that I've received. If a client has already purchased a PA-DSS application and have made changes in the branding, does this impact the PA-DSS scope? How does this, till what extent? Okay, so if you have purchased a PA-DSS application and only the branding, color scheme, and all those things have changed, no need for getting PA-DSS validated again, because everybody does that. Where it is needed to be done is when any of the requirement, as you saw the 14 requirements as you have seen, if any impact is there to that, that is a payment flow changes, encryption changes, storage changes, new module landed, edited, validated, all those things updated, that's when revalidation is required. Okay, Ashna, nice question again. Can you share the presentation? Of course, dear. What happens is, since you've registered for this thing, you'll also be getting the first look at the recording also before the rest of the world. You get a 15 days head start on that. So you'll be getting a recorded session also before it gets hosted on YouTube. So quickly on secure coding requirements as per PA-DSS. Okay, I'll jump on these things. How not to secure code. Okay, okay, I'll jump this thing. There are like most of the breaches happens in a PCI DSS environment primarily because of faulty applications. The applications gets compromised. That's where the environment gets compromised. That's where PA-DSS came up with that standard. And there are many web applications coding standards are there. You can use any of them. There is VASEC, WAF-EC, OS top 10 is there, Symmetry standards are there, SAN standards are there. You can go through any and all of them. This is where the overlap with the PCI DSS Council happens. So with the PA DSS happens, PCI DSS 6.5, and there are many other sub requirements below it. 6.5, 6.6 talks about development of secure web applications. If your applications are PA DSS validated, then most of these requirements gets covered by default, because you have used the right standards for secure development of your applications. And there is again the ongoing application validation requirements from emerging application threats. So WAF is required. So whether it's a PA-DSS application or not, yes, Ricky, right? So Ricky also asked, he took the words from my mouth. So Ricky is also asking one question, that is, do I need to have a WAF even if there is a PA-DSS application? Absolutely, Ricky. Even if you have a PA-DSS application in place and it is exposed to the net, a WAF is mandatory as per PCI DSS requirements. And again, PCI DSS again and PA DSS as a sum up, it applies only to commercial softwares, not for customized softwares. So that brings me to the end, and I've got slightly above, and I'm very happy to see that almost all of you have stuck till the end. That shows how much interesting and important this was for you. So thank you again for attending. Do please, as I request you, please fill up that survey that comes up as you exit this webinar. A couple of you quick things for you. These are our past webinars that has happened, and you can see there are so many great webinars already hosted on our YouTube channel. Tons of resources, all for free. And as so many of you must have already seen the 33rd, that is 3 webinars before, even the representative from the PCI Council, Nitin Bhatnagar, was there. He's one of the associate directors in the PCI Council. Even he was there as a in talk series with us. And if you want to see that also, even that is there on our PCI, on our playlist of PCI webinars on our website, on our YouTube channel. The last one that we had was COVID-19 and business continuity, and this is what we did now. This is our YouTube channel. It's doing very well, rather. There are many subscribers to it, and this is a Facebook page. Do subscribe to it, so you get a lot of tidbits of news channels and content. And this is our LinkedIn page. Do connect with us on our LinkedIn page and be a part of the group on business continuity PCI DSS and get first look at a lot of articles and blog contents. And this is my contact details. Do drop us a line, and we will get back to you. So thank you so much, and we will look forward to seeing you again next month and the next webinar. That is, do drop in your ideas as to what you think should be there as the next topic. So thank you again for being there, and have a wonderful day and week ahead. Stay safe. Bye bye.